So my grandfather taught me to drive when I was 8 years old, and he taught me to drive in this 1967 Chevy long bed with the old wooden slats in the floor, 3-speed on the column, slant 6, no AC except the windows down. Man, I remember my first lesson. It was incredible. This is Barry with FatherSeekers, and this is the podcast Teach Me to Father. So I remember my first lesson with my grandfather teaching me to drive. We were on a country road, a secondary interstate, leaving Loudon, Tennessee, and Loudon County, headed back to Chattanooga. And he was the most brilliant man I've ever met, in that he could take very difficult tasks and problems and make them simple. And one of the things in this whole driving thing that he was teaching me was to think about, as you shift the gears, as you interchange, make the clutches in, shift the gear on the column. I don't know if you ever driven one of those things, bro, but it's hard. I mean, and yes, to all the millennials who listen in the Z's, yes, they did have cars like that. You shifted, column, clutch. But he said, while you're driving, while you're shifting, you're accelerating, you're clutching, you're shifting, and you're steering all at the same time. But I want you to remember one thing. I want you to remember that there's a bucket of water in the floor, and it's filled 3/4 of the way up. Don't spill the water in the bucket on the floor, in the car. 8 years old. I remember getting up so fast. It was like, I remember going, man, this is awesome. I was driving 85 miles an hour and taking this little curve, and he said, son, I think you probably ought to slow down. Very patient guy, calm. Nothing really rattled him. But my grandfather was one of those he was the most practical guy I'd ever met, and he was good about teaching practice and consequence. Like with every practical piece, there was consequence with it. And I remember that he taught me all about how the truck worked, and how to change the oil and do the brake work, and how to change tires. And I worked in a garage for free. He worked at a gas station when he retired, and I worked in the garage just to learn. But he taught me all about that truck and how to use it, how to load things in properly, and how to haul things and do all those sorts of things. I remember learning all those things and being certified, to be trained and to be certified. Like, that's huge when you drive. Like, I've met very few people in my life in the South, the Midwest, and Central America who don't drive. Now you go north to big, huge metropolitan areas, it's common because of the price. But nonetheless, he taught me, and there's this, as I realize and think back, there's this certification piece that goes with driving. Like, you have to be certified, you have to be trained. And I remember that although he trained me very well, and I could drive anything, he trained me very well. But I remember I had to get certified when I was a kid in high school. I had to take driver's ed to be certified, to be able to take the test for my license to drive alone. I remember my driver's ed teacher, his name was Vance Randall, and I went to a school in Fort Oglethorpe, Georgia, called Lakeview High School, the home of the Warriors, the mighty Warriors. We were awesome too, by the way. But Mr. Randall, great teacher, man. Great teacher, but he was not just a great driver's ed teacher. He was the national champion of putt-putt golf, as I remember. Like, he these little putt-putt golf courses that were all over the South, and he would go to tournaments everywhere because all the courses were different, and he was the national champion. Like, he was an incredible putter. But he's very meticulous about things, and he taught us how to drive well. Like you putt a golf ball. He was that kind of trainer. He trained you how to drive, how to check under the hood, how to check the pressures and top. It already knew all that, but I had to go through that again to be certified, because there's qualifications that every driver has to have to be able to drive a car, and you have to be qualified, and your qualifications have to be recognized. You have to have recognition for those qualifications and study and all of the practice hours you had, and then all of the practice hours and the time my grandfather let me drive illegally. All those didn't count because they were not qualified hours. They were teaching hours. They're not qualified hours. I want to ask you a question. Who taught you to drive? Like, do you remember who taught you how to drive and what the important things were? Like, what are the most important things when you drive, and what are the things that you have to watch out for? Like how to brake, how to accelerate, how to approach a traffic circle, how to approach a stoplight, how to watch. My grandfather told me this, I'll never forget. He said, son, when you're driving, you won't have an accident. It's the other guy. You'll always have to watch out for the other guy, because he's going to cause the accident. And you know what? Most 99% of the time, that's true. If you're watching the other guy and being careful, you're always mindful of what you're doing. How brilliant was that? My question is to you, though, who taught you how to drive? Who taught you the most important pieces about driving, and who taught you what they knew about driving? Like, who knew at the time of your teaching what was most important? I know that we were taught to drive 10 and 2. If you do that now with a new car and the airbags go off, it'll break your wrist. So you drive down at, I believe, 4 8. Yeah, you drive low. So at the time of your learning to drive, who taught you how to do that? And where and how did you learn what was important? Were you just taught in a classroom how to drive, or did somebody come alongside you and tell you what to do, how to do it, how to operate different vehicles? You know, we all need to know how to drive, because transportation is impossible. It's impossible to live in this world and not have transportation. Everybody has transportation. We may not always have our own vehicle, but we all have transportation. So being able to transport yourself is incredibly important. Now, I want you to take, you already know, if you've listened to one of my podcasts, you know where I'm going with this. So, who taught you how to be a dad? Did your dad teach you how to be a dad? Or maybe an uncle, or maybe a grandfather? My grandfather taught me a whole lot, but there are just some things that only dads can teach their sons. No matter how great a grandpa you had. I had a great granddad, man. But no matter how great your grandfather is, you still need your dad. Who taught you how to be a dad? Being a dad is a little bit like learning how to drive a car. And having fatherhood thrust upon you may have been uncomfortable. It was for me. I had no idea. But I want to ask you, who's driving your car today? Your fatherhood. Who's driving your fatherhood? Is it the man you are today, or is it the boy that you grew up as without a father? Fatherhood, the transmission of fatherhood from father to son through sonship, is absolutely crucial. Now, those words simply mean this: Everything is passed down from father to son. And there are some things, many only, that our dads can teach us. And if you didn't have a dad to teach you, then there's a deficit. Now, surely that deficit can be overcome. It's not hard to do at all. Actually, it's relatively easy to get to the place where you can begin to learn what you need to know. Learning and incorporating what you need to know is a lifetime journey. And it's a journey that you need to begin immediately, no matter how good you think you are. There are some things that only a father can pass on to a son. That's why I'm such a big proponent of spiritual fathers. And let me just tell you what that is real quick. A spiritual father is a father who has come alongside you and recognized in you greatness, and they want to input because they may not have been the perfect father, but they were a good father, and they have experience that's been evaluated, and they're willing to teach you and to walk along with you and to help you become the man that and the father that God created you to be. So if you don't have a spiritual father, shoot me an email and I can help you with that. I can help you find one, and I can help you do that, Barry at FatherSeekers.org. So who's responsible for driving the fatherhood car in your life? Who's responsible for driving your kids off to their legacy and destiny? And who's responsible for your wife to get her to where she should be in this relationship with you and getting your kids to where they need to be? Who's responsible for that? You are. We are. I was. Many of us are. But we don't know how to drive the car. And if we do, we don't even know where to start and where to go to. It's one thing to know how to drive a car, but if you don't know where you're going or where you want to go, then there's a huge problem. So what I want to talk to you about for a couple of minutes here is this. I want to talk to you about not just the heavy weight of you being responsible, but I want to talk to you about you need driver's lessons. You need to learn how to drive the fatherhood car. Now, here's what we could do. We could sit around and bemoan the fact that we grew up without a dad and that for whatever reason our dad left. And we can moan and groan and what people say where I'm from, whine and cry about it. Or we can just acknowledge what actually is. We can assess it and evaluate it. We can just say, look, this happened. I didn't create this. I didn't cause this. It was thrust upon me. And it's not my responsibility to pay for all that's happened, but it's my responsibility to learn how to move forward, how to be a great dad, how to be a great husband, and how to be a great man, and change the curvature of the narrative that I've brought forward into my life. Like, big deal, you don't know how to drive. So let's learn how to drive. Let's get with people that know how to drive, and they're going to teach you how to drive. You'll never learn how to drive if you don't get with somebody who's really a good driver. If you don't get with a Vance Randall, who's particular and peculiar and cares about you as a person and not as just another thing to do. I want to tell you what to do when you don't know how to drive a car. And these are probative questions that we have to ask so that once you answer these questions, you have a clear-cut idea and a clear-cut pathway to get driving lessons from experienced, qualified, recognized, great driver's ed teachers, dads who know what they're doing. Here's the first question. Number one, are you willing to learn how to drive? That piece requires humility. Now, most guys I know, once they understand what humility is, they don't really have a hard time with it because they've been beat up pretty good. And it's not hard to be humble when you've had nothing but hard knocks for most of your life. It's not. But there's a fine line of having all those hard knocks where you get hardened and calloused and you don't want any help from anybody. It's easier to do it on your own. That was me. So I'm telling you, that's not the way to do it. It will cause you pain and your kids pain and your wife pain. So what I want to talk to you about is being humble and acknowledging part of this humility thing is not only acknowledging that I need somebody to teach me how to drive that knows how to drive, but I need to commit to the process. I need to get in the middle of this thing and learn. And again, it's a lifetime experience. It's a process. You're not if you don't learn how to drive, you will always be counting on somebody else to take you where you need to be. And you don't want to be in that position. Okay. Number 2, will you put the work in to become a really great driver of the fatherhood that's been bestowed upon you? Will you put the work in? Now, most of us have worked really hard at trying to figure out fatherhood. We have. But maybe what we learned or were told or tried to learn on our own and figure out, maybe that wasn't the right thing, and it maybe didn't get us where we need to be faster and quicker, or it caused more problems for us than it should have. So I want to just give you a couple of key points here. If you are willing to put in the work, assess what you don't know and what you do know. Now, how in the world do you do that? If you already don't know how to be a dad, it's easy. You get with somebody that knows how, and they can sit with you and help you. And of course, the humility piece is going to require that you expose yourself and your weaknesses to a trusted brother who can help you. And I'm going to tell you, there are many men who are in this situation who want to help other young men become really great dads. And they've learned the hard way. And they've had difficult times and great times, and their experience is evaluated. But you have to assess where you are, what you don't know, and what you do know. And some of the things that you don't know that you need to know are common that fathers experience, fathers know. The next thing is we have to create a pathway for you to be able to learn those things that are necessary. Maybe you learn some things that are really good, but the application is different, or you're using it in a different way than it should be used. Discipline is a real good one on this. Like, I learned discipline from my mom was a belt, a shoe, a broom, whatever would happen, whatever was in her hand. But discipline is not to hurt or to wound. It's to guide and to bend toward what's right. So discipline's one of those things where you have to learn the proper application. Then the last piece is this: are you teachable? Are you willing to learn from somebody who knows more than you do? The great men that I've been around who really knew what they were talking about, they were so full of wisdom and knowledge, discernment, understanding, insight, discretion, so wise. This runs right back to humility. Teachability is really connected to humility, because once you realize what you don't know and what you do know needs to be applied better, and what you don't know, you have to learn that. It's very humbling. And if you already walk into it with a humble heart, you won't get all tensed up and mad. And through this process, I will tell you right now, you're gonna have a lot of why questions. And why didn't my dad stay? Why didn't he do this? Why did my mom do that? Look, that's part of the cycle. That's part of the way of working through it. So I want you to be encouraged. Now, listen, go to FatherSeekers.org. There's content that you can drop your email in, and this content will be sent to you. It's free, helpful content that will teach you some of these things and help get you on the right road. Like, do you know how to disciple your kids and your wife? Not discipline them, teach them scriptures. Maybe not, because nobody taught you. Look, avail yourself to Father Seekers. Avail yourself to the coaching that's available there. Sign up for Father Fuel. There's tons of stuff. You can do this, buddy. Learn how to drive a car. This is Barry with FatherSeekers, and this is the podcast, Teach Me to Father.